Let's go back to that tragic shooting and killing of two Israeli embassy workers in DC last night. The victims and suspect have all been identified, and the shooting has now reignited the already heavily discussed topic of growing rates of anti-Semitism. We're now bringing on Zvika Klein, editor-in-chief of the Jerusalem Post. Zvika, it's great having you on. Let's talk about these two young victims here. Yaron Lashinsky, 30 years old, Sarah Milgram, just 26. Walk us through what was going your mind, yesterday as you first heard about what happened, and then today as more information came out. I mean, this was a young couple that was just about to get engaged.
Right, exactly. So, first of all, thank you for having me. So here in Israel, it's actually the same day. We really woke up, in the morning, today, Thursday, and, heard the reports, which were very tragic. These are two young staffers, as you mentioned, in the embassy. We're about to get engaged. The Israeli ambassador, Yechiel Leiter, just, spoke a few hours ago about the fact that Yaron actually bought an engagement ring for Sarah, and they were planning on getting married. So it's a very tragic situation. And also, I think one of the important things is they weren't leaving the embassy; they were leaving an event at the Jewish Museum. And I think the attacker, the 30-something-year-old attacker from Chicago, was not necessarily looking for an Israeli, though he did, that was, according to reports, his motive, but he was actually looking for Jews at a Jewish event. Now it so happens that they're not necessarily both Jewish. One of them is an evangelical Christian supporting Israel. But I think that was kind of what this attacker was looking for people who were Jewish, because he assumed that they supported Israel, which is true in this sense.
Right. And when you look at that photo of the two of them smiling there, it's a very beautiful, young, bright couple. And we've heard from people who knew them, who were acquaintances or friends, and they said, people at the embassy, they all knew about them. They were almost like a star couple at the embassy. Sarah Milgram, she was supposed to visit Israel later this week. That's where her boyfriend was going to propose to her. Now, her father said in an interview with the New York Times after the shooting that he found it ironic that he was worrying for his daughter's safety in Jerusalem when she was ultimately killed right here in America.
Yeah, I agree with that irony. I think, unfortunately, we're in an era where Jews all around the world are considered targets, whether it because of their faith, whether it because of their support, or even not support of Israel, right? Because someone could have went out of that event, which was, a mainstream Jewish event, but may have not necessarily been super pro-Israel, and also, God forbid, be attacked. So, I think Jews all over the world feel this sense of fear and sense of survival that we've actually, as a nation, also been experiencing for so long. In the world stage, Israel is always perceived to be, the Goliath, and the Palestinians as the David, but actually, I think in many senses, Israelis see themselves as the David and as the one that's being, chased around the world, and with one homeland to live in, but even there, not totally in safety.
Right. And we've seen administration officials, lawmakers all offering their condolences. We've got EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin saying he just met Sarah a few weeks ago, and now she's gone. We got Secretary Rubio, President Trump as well. They all expressed their condolences and called for an end to anti-Semitism here in America. How do you think the administration is doing so far when it comes to combating this rise in anti-Semitism? Is there more, or what more can be done?
So first of all, we forget this administration is really so fresh because they're just, getting a lot done or speaking about a lot of things. I think one thing they definitely kind of, put their tasks to is to combat anti-Semitism. I can't say, other administrations also spoke about it and tried to combat. But I think what we're seeing on university campuses now, and Ivy League universities, for the first time, universities like Columbia or Harvard are actually addressing anti-Semitism in a serious way because, their federal funding was at risk, et cetera. So suddenly, we do have a situation where many institutions are starting to move and starting to take steps in combating anti-Semitism, as well as as threatening to have people who are not necessarily citizens who go to these universities who hold anti-Semitic beliefs or who have active in an illegal way to have them leave the United States and not ever come back.
And on the point of law enforcement, we're hearing Attorney General Pam Bondi. She's saying that if this suspect is ultimately charged, he's going to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. What more in terms of law enforcement do you think needs to happen to prevent this type of violence and not just react to it? I mean, do you think there needs to be more of a security presence at similar future events?
So that's the thing. There really is. There are security measures taken at every single Jewish event. I even know of synagogues that built cement walls in order to kind of keep their safety. So I don't even know how much more can be done. I mean, yes, you could send more patrol, police officers, but at the end of the day, you can't have every single Jewish institution be secure 100%. So I think, as you were saying, law enforcement really has to also charge at the most extreme way and make sure that the media also kind of covers it, and that people understand that this is not only a crime, it's a hate crime, and hate crimes, should be taken in a more serious way.
Right. And law enforcement is really, as I mentioned, reactive, right? It's usually there to try to prevent something, but ultimately it can only
Right.
react when something's already happened. But from a cultural perspective, is there anything that you think could be done to address this issue of hatred at its root to prevent this type of incident from ever occurring in the first place?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think as the days go on, we'll learn more and more about the ideology that invoke this type of violence and murder. But I think definitely, as I said before, in higher education, universities aren't doing enough in educating about the diversity of the American society, about different minorities. Yes, the Jews are a minority, though they are, a strong minority that's been in the U.S. for many, many generations, but still a minority, and still, the most hate crimes towards any single group is towards the Jewish community, and we're talking about 2% of Americans. So I said, I think both in higher education, but also in high schools and elementary schools, I think there needs to be a lesson or lessons taught about understanding other cultures, and not taking it for granted that people who are from a certain faith are de facto what demon they have in their head towards that person.
Absolutely. Zvika Klein, great having you on today. Thank you.
Thank you.